Sonic. He goes fast. Like, really frickin' fast. But as I'm sure you know, it was never really just about going fast, at least not at the beginning. Sure, you did move pretty quick and all, but the whole point of the games was building the speed, and maintaining it came second, but it was a relevant challenge. But at some point, Sonic Team thought to themselves, hey, what if that was the main challenge? Fast forward like a bajillion years, and here we are with this game here, zipping around like Speedy Gonzales and flying off of stuff and this and that and the other, nifty. Sonic's been playing around with functions or moves to just instantly gain speed since Sonic 2, of course, but nowadays you just press a button and Sonic instantly blasts off. Where did that come from? You know, somehow I'm surprised. Sonic Drift, yeah, this game's kinda neat. You know, this was actually my first time playing Sonic Drift. Honestly, I'm just really impressed that they even managed to get a full kart racer working on this teeny tiny 8-bit brick with link cable multiplayer and everything. Obviously, it's no Super Mario Kart competitor. I mean, you just drive forward and turn when you gotta, so it's nothing crazy, basically just a series of glorified QuickTime events. But it's sort of fun, and something of a neat novelty regardless. And it has a boosting function that Sonic can use, yippee! You activate it by pressing up on the D-pad once you've collected exactly 2 rings. Yeah, unlike most other Sonic racing games, there aren't a ton of rings on these tracks, so they had to be pretty generous with the minimum rings required to boost. Anyway, once you do, you'll hear a noise that goes, and you'll go faster until you get sprung into the air or get hit. Truth be told, these tracks whiz by so fast that I don't really notice much of a difference when boosting outside of the change in animation, and I should be able to notice a difference. But it can help if you're falling behind, even if falling behind is pretty rare in Drift. All of this also applies to Drift 2 as far as I can tell, but I haven't played that one as much, although I do think it is slightly more useful there. Overall, this was a decent first try when it comes to boost mechanics, but while it's harmless and decent enough, it's pretty insubstantial. Just like this game. But it wouldn't be too long until they brought something resembling this into real 3D. Just kidding, it would be almost a decade. Wait, no, that's not right. Sonic Heroes. This is the one where you play as 3 characters at once and use their abilities to get through levels and not die and not get hit once or else you lose the shiny key. Yeah, that's Sonic Heroes. I 100%ed it. This game's really good. So yeah, pretty neat little game we got here. And what do you know, for the first time in a main series Sonic title since 1994, the game has some special stages. These are pretty nice. You run around in this translucent pipe thing that is totally not canonically part of the Chow world and collect fancy peanut M&Ms to win the Chaos Emerald or to win absolutely nothing. They're not the greatest, but they're okay. And what's that in the corner? Press X. I wonder what that Yay! Yep, this is the origin of the boost in 3D games. Betcha a lot of you normies didn't see that coming. It runs on this meter at the top right here, decreases consistently as long as the X button is held, and is refilled by collecting the aforementioned glowing Skittles. It's definitely a lot more useful than Drift's boost because it's absolutely mandatory to netting those Chaos Emeralds and recovering if you stumble. Weirdly though, it works fine as the speed and power characters, but it's oddly slow as the fly characters. I got no idea why. I mean, the only reason you wouldn't want to be the speed characters at all times in these stages is to net a couple extra magic gumballs, so I guess they just didn't notice. Or they didn't care, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like I said, you mostly want to be the speed characters in these stages anyway. The effect is just a blue trail, sadly, so no cool aura or anything to be found here, but it's a pretty cool example of an early attempt at a boosted mechanic in a Sonic game. But this is just the special stage ability. What if you built an entire game around it? Sonic Rush. You know dimps, right? Sonic Team Junior, if you will. Yeah, up until Nintendo just decided to make their home console and handheld one and the same, they were in charge of all the handheld Sonic titles, Pocket Adventure Onward, and sub-versions of main series games like Unleashed, Colors, Generations, Secret Rings, and in 2005, they released a little game called Sonic Rush. 3 games had the gameplay style that this game established. This game, its sequel, Sonic Rush Adventure, and the DS version of Sonic Colors, which was effectively Sonic Rush 3. Since they share basically the same general attributes, I have decided to group them all into one, which definitely has nothing to do with the fact that I have yet to beat Rush Adventure and yet to even play Colors DS. Sonic Rush looks a lot like the advanced games that preceded it, but most players will immediately notice this big ol' line on the left side of the screen. This is the tension gauge, which is just the boost game by a different name. Activation is as simple as last time. Fill the gauge, press a button, and... Can I just say, I really like the boost effect here. It has a very stylized aura and a neat looking trail that I think it looks really cool. Forces would bring this style of boost aura back with a vengeance, as does Shadow Generations by the looks of things. So yeah, this one's quite neat. You can actually jump while using this, and it essentially makes you invincible midair while maintaining your speed, allowing you to bulldoze these levels if you know what you're doing. You refill the tension gauge by defeating enemies and performing tricks off of springs and on grind rails. And something unique to the Rush games is that when the gauge is full, it'll lock at 100% capacity as long as you're still performing actions that fill it. I find it really satisfying to maintain this state. Yeah, Sonic Rush's boosting mechanic is really neat, and the Rush style definitely deserves a comeback in the modern day. I have no segue. Did somebody say based? Sonic Riders also has a boosting mechanic to call its own, and similar to the Rush games, it's controlled by a meter on the side of the screen. This bad boy is the air meter, and when pressing B, you get a little boost. Pretty cool. And also pretty weak. Well, that's where collecting rings comes in. You can fill the air meter itself by performing tricks and taking type-specific shortcuts, but something unique that you can do in this game is increase the capacity of the meter by collecting 30 and then 60 rings, giving you more air to use and therefore allowing you to boost more and more. The boost in this game can also be used to attack your opponents, although I've generally never found this too useful personally. However, at higher levels, instead of losing all your momentum when attacking, you just bulldoze the competition. Cool. And hey, this ain't even the only game to come out this year with a boosting mechanic. I mean, I'm not wrong. This is a video game. Look, I'm not gonna go through the whole spiel about this game's rushed development, how it tarnished series reputation, and this and that, the other, whatever. You've all heard it a trillion times, even from me. The point is, for some reason, unlike the past few adventure-style titles, this game decided to attach its upgrades to a shop that you can find in the hub worlds. There's the obvious ones, like the light shoes, the bounce bracelet, the anti-gravity. This is just a slide. But among those, there are also these nifty little colored gems you can buy. These gems give you a ring magnet, an infinite double jump, a slingshot, etc. And the blue gem gives you a boost. You activate it by pressing the right trigger and it shoots you forward at the cost of some energy from your meter. Just kidding, they forgot to program the part where it detracts from your meter, so you can just use it infinitely. Never change Sonic 06. In theory, this is neat, but unfortunately it suffers from a lot of the problems that Sonic 06's controls suffer from in general. Handling this thing can be quite annoying, and Sonic just comes to a dead stop if he so much as stubs his toe or grazes a wall. Surprise, surprise, P06 did it much better, but the blue gem in Retail 06 just feels kinda awkward. However, I must give it this, it is the best way to comfortably navigate solely on a forest without losing your mind. But I guess even with this, Sonic Team and Sega saw the potential of the boosting mechanic, and it would only be a matter of time until they included it in another proper console Sonic game, Sonic and the Secret Rings. Scattered throughout the stages of this chiropractic session, sorry, I meant video game, are these little glowing orbs called pearls, which make a noise that I really like.
Something's after us!
Good. But weirdly, they don't actually do anything until 3 levels in. Upon completing the first mission of Evil Foundry, this thing appears on the right side of the screen. This is the Soul Gauge, which again is just the boost gauge by a different name. When you collect pearls after unlocking this bad boy, it fills up a vat's worth of yummy orange Fanta. And if you press up on the D-pad, or I guess right technically, depending on how you look at it, this happens.
Speed break!
The road splits in two.
If you go super fast, these red streaks fly everywhere, and in this state, you damage enemies. Interestingly, unlike the boost in Heroes or in later titles, you don't actually need to hold the button down to boost. Just press it once and your meter starts draining automatically. Press it again to cancel, which will save you from throwing yourself off the stage. Speed break is pretty useful overall, and it definitely makes some of these missions a lot more tolerable. It won't save Pirate Storm from being Pirate Storm, but it's nifty. Did somebody say bass? Wait, I already said that. Sonic Riders' boost mechanic was pretty cool, and with the sequel, it's reasonable to expect that something similar exists here. The boost in the first Riders was pretty easy to grasp, so this one can't be that much more crazy.
Ready? Go!
Sweet sarsaparilla. This is the gravity dive. Hold the R button, charge the thing up, and you go flying. And I do mean literally flying, by the way. This thing goes super fast and can maneuver in pretty much any direction, allowing you to take some absolutely busted shortcuts. In some sections of the tracks, you can collide with objects mid-dive to skate along them and bounce off like an anime protagonist to gain tons of speed, as well as reorient yourself and refill some GP to your GP meter, which is effectively this game's version of the air meter, which will drain continuously the more you dive. Interestingly, how big your boost is and how much GP you'll gain when bouncing off objects is dependent on how long you skate along them, which means that it's more beneficial to hit them from the back. Pulling off this ability, which is called Meteor Burst by the way, feels really satisfying to do. So, this is kind of the coolest thing of all time, and I feel it deserves to be recognized as such. As I said in my last video, I have a lot more to say about this game in the future, so stay tuned. Oh, hey, speaking of pure awesomeness, Sonic Unleashed! After Sonic Rush and Secret Rings did surprisingly well considering the state Sonic was in back then, it's safe to say that Sega and Sonic Team clearly saw something in this nifty boosting playstyle. So when 06 failed, they decided to implement this previously experimental feature into Sonic Unleashed, the next big Sonic game. The daytime levels of Unleashed are basically just a 3D reimagining of Sonic Rush's playstyle. You'll be boosting a majority of the time, reacting quickly to obstacles, blasting through enemies, etc. Though this time, you'll actually fill up the boost meter with rings as opposed to filling it by destroying enemies and performing tricks off springs and on grind rails. Another difference is that the meter doesn't stay filled for a short period of time once it's at capacity, motivating the player to be more active and constantly filling the meter. The boost itself feels great in this game. It goes really, really fast, and the air boost gives you a lot of distance once you have the air boost upgrade. It is sort of annoying that it's mapped to the same button as the homing attack, but it's not a big deal because this was the first truly mainline Sonic game to feature the homing attack reticle introduced in Sonic and the Secret Rings, which makes it much more predictable than it would be otherwise. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it, and it seems like this one in particular seemed to really strike a chord with people because it would be essentially reprised 1-for-1 3 years later in Sonic Generations. Well, the air boost was significantly nerfed for literally no reason, but otherwise it's exactly the same. Doesn't change the fact that Generations has terrible controls, but I don't want people hiring him to kill me, so let's just change the subject. Now, even though I've pretty accurately summarized how Unleashed's boosting system works in its entirety, real Sonic Unleashed gamers know that this is far from the only thing to say about Sonic Unleashed on this topic. Sort of. This is pretty common knowledge these days, but way back in the day, Sonic Unleashed also got ports for the Wii and PS2. It might not have been hard to simply downscale the graphics and squeeze the main version out of the Wii, seeing as Sonic Colors came out only 2 years later and did basically just that, but this version of Unleashed is actually a totally different game with differing mechanics, stage design, visual design, controls, and a lot of other fairly obvious differences, including some of the environments themselves. For example, I actually prefer the SD version's rendition of Cool Edge to the HD version because of the caves and this crushing thing really adding a sense of scale to the level that just sort of isn't there in the HD version, but that's besides the point. Despite Dimps, the pioneers of the boost formula, being integral to the development of this version, the boosting system in this game is actually quite reminiscent of Sonic Riders and Sonic and the Secret Rings. Instead of being one big thing, the boost in this game is separated into segments, and you activate the boost by pressing the Y button to spend the energy in one of said segments to go faster. It's pretty neat. Said boost itself is also crazy fast, like probably faster than the HD version. Holy cow, man, this thing absolutely rockets you. It makes it harder to turn, but you can bypass that issue entirely with a good drift. Unfortunately, the fact that you have bursts of the boost instead of one big thing combined with how fast it is makes it kinda hard to control, especially in this game. It's a shame really, because when it works well with the level design, it really works well. Ideally, for a boosting system like this, I would have preferred something like Secret Rings. In Secret Rings, you could press the boost button a second time to cancel, except, of course, oh yeah, baby. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you didn't even realize this game had a boosting mechanic at all. Obviously, Soul Surge is famous for being one of the most satisfying attacks in the entire franchise due to its excellent sound design, but I'd be willing to wager most of you don't even know that it's also a Speed Break returning from Sonic and the Secret Rings, and there are even unused graphics for a scrap tutorial explaining how to do it. It's much the same as Secret Rings, but with a different setup. Here, you have to press the B button and then swing the Wii Remote. If there aren't any enemies in range, it'll blast you forward and you can cancel it by pressing B again. It goes about as fast as Speed Break, but the red streaking effect has been removed. I suppose this is a pro or con depending on how you look at it, but considering the combat focus this game has, I suppose it makes sense for you to be able to see a little better. Then again, it does stop you when you encounter an enemy, but hey, at least that means more awesome sound design, accompanied by some satisfying voice acting by Jason Griffith, who I'm sure will be around until the end of time.
Sonic Free Riders!
Yeah. Hey, now, I can't dog on this game too much, because it's pretty much solely responsible for my entire career, but whatever, it has a boost, so let's talk about it. Continuing the tradition from Zero Gravity of doing something somewhat abnormal for the boost, in this game you have an ability called the Kick Dash. To activate it, you do what I just said. When playing on the Kinect, you use your back leg to charge it up, and then put it back down to kick off as if you were gaining speed on a skateboard. When you do this, it gives you a little boost. Yeah, that's essentially all. It's not as over the top as a gravity dive, and I'd argue it's not quite as cool as the original Rider's boost either, but hey, it's neat. You can even use it alongside the S item to get the attack mode from the first two Riders games. I've never done it, but you can do it, so yeah. Pretty neat. Sonic Colors! Yeah, I bet some of you were surprised that I gave this game its own dedicated segment instead of just lumping it in with Unleashed and Generations above, but that's because this game's boost is actually pretty different. I mean, sure, in theory it handles the same. You press the boost button and you go Wii. Pretty simple. Except it actually handles really differently. For starters, it's nowhere near as fast, but to make up for this, it handles really well compared to Unleashed and Generations. Like, you can swerve left and right really easily in this game when boosting, and because of this, I always feel like I'm in full control of the power. Plus, the air boost in this game is fantastic. It's a lot easier to control in midair than the Unleashed air boost, and it's actually a useful traversal tool, unlike Generations air boost. I also really like that your boost consumption in this game is significantly more limited than it is in Generations and Unleashed, meaning that you have to play skillfully to conserve it and know when the best times to use it is in order to beat the stage faster. Oh, hey, that sounds familiar. For that reason, I think this game, in theory, did boost gameplay the best, but in execution, I think Unleashed is the more fun game to play. But hey, Generations came right after this, so how could it go anywhere but up?
Run for your lives, everyone! It's the appetizer!
Meh. That's it. That's alright, I guess. Minimal control, minimum speed, yada yada yada, Sonic Forces, you know the drill. Kind of a bummer that they thought it was just such a brilliant idea to reverse engineer Lost World into a boost game, but oh well, I guess. I don't have much to say on the ground control of the boost in this game that hasn't already been said, but I do actually have a hot take about the air boost. I genuinely think it's the best in Sonic Boost history, and I'm not even a little bit joking. Like, this thing launches you into the sky, and it always feels awesome to use. And I think, in a game with better designed levels, this could make for some really interesting speedruns. It already does with the base game, to be fair to Forces fans, but I feel like it's a little too easy to pull off in the stages we have. It's satisfying to do, don't get me wrong, but a little too easy in what were already pretty basic and short stages to begin with. But overall, this one's alright. Alright, back to good games. This game has the best boost turning out of any of these main boost games, and by that I mean you can turn in a circle so easily that they made it one of the central mechanics of the game. It feels amazing. Unfortunately, we lose the crazy catapult air boost from forces, which sucks because that would have been awesome in the open zones.
But it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
This still feels awesome regardless, and the lack of the catapult air boost is somewhat made up for with the lack of jump deceleration added in the second content upgrade, which is great. Something else I like about this one is when you max out the ring count or level up speed to 99, you get this Sonic movie inspired blue power boost that goes super fast. Interestingly, the boost in this game is mapped to the right trigger instead of one of the face buttons like all the other boost games. It's a bizarre change, but considering that you need your right thumb to operate the camera in a game like this, it's one I can understand. Not sure why they brought it back in Shadow Generations, as that's clearly a more traditional boost game, but whatever, and hey, you can still switch to the original layout in that game. Well, that's basically all I have to say on this. I don't think I missed anything, did I? Oh yeah, Sonic Dream Team. You're never getting my money, Tim! Oh yeah, by the way, this video was already in production when Shadow Generations came out, which is why it doesn't have a dedicated section in the video. The boost in that game is pretty cool, and it's basically just Frontier's power boost, but cooler. Yay.